Whether you're new to pool and practicing the basics, or a more experienced player performing drills to improve your shot making and positional play, the Drill Partner is perfect for you.
All right, here we go, boys. Welcome back, everyone, to this episode of Doggin It. I'm really excited about this one today because we are going to dog it good. So we got
looking forward to it.
Yeah, we got Melina Mike and Mike Pinozo of Billiards Digest. And before we get started, I just want to give a shout out to Franco Custom Cues, Premier Billiards. You see all the sponsors scrolling on the side of the screen: Salado, Town, Pulling Around Show, Moonlighting. Just saw their little ad. Mob Productions, Jamison Daniels. Thanks, guys, for all the love and all the support. We really appreciate you guys. Mariposa, did I say them?
You didn't. No, we should have gotten dressed up like Jennifer Rabbit said.
Yeah,
Mike, you especially, Mike.
Like the Golden Globes, we could have had a red carpet.
I didn't even think about that, man. Golly, that was a pretty.
I would have gone like backless or something.
Hey, look, you got to start somewhere, guys. You got to start somewhere. And in 5 years,
could have worn my smoking jacket.
Can we end the stream and come back on in like 5 minutes?
We might be doing these awards from the Moscone Cup, black tie affair only. Okay,
there you go.
So we got to start somewhere, though.
Well, this is where it all began, as they say.
Well, Melina, why don't you give a rundown on the methodology? I know we had some help from some of our Patreon folks.
Okay,
we had some
it was
voting.
like this. It was like this. We just all have a couple of categories, and then we're just blindly picking. No, we listen. We went off the old eye test, as I like to say. So. We found some categories.
Why use statistics when they're available to you? Just don't
no, that takes way too much work. Mike texted us just a few minutes ago just about some of the criteria for male player of the year, and he's like, it's a lot closer than what you guys would have thought. And I didn't know how in depth he got to it. Long story short, we were on the same page, except these things bat 1,000. Mike's is a little, Mike's statistics over there are a little up and down. So what are you gonna do?
Okay.
Well, guys, why don't we get going? Oh, Melina, did you share about? So we had some of our Patreon folks. I think Matt Poland helped us out, recommended a bunch of categories, and actually drew up a little spreadsheet for us to kind of start us off. Some of the things that we decided we wanted to go more with the players and not so much with like brands or pool rooms, things like that, because
policy.
Yeah, we'll just stick with the players. So we appreciate all the help. I know, Melina, you put some of this out for voting, and then after that, we kind of, said, you know what, it's a little easier just to pick them. So
we meant to do this by the end of the year. We dogged it there for sure because I ended up having to go to Sacramento, and then the year just kind of flew by. So what are you going to do? But I'm excited for this one. I wanted to do it last year too, and so I guess we're just jumping on in. So
I'll tell you what, the awards graphic game is tight at Windows Open.
Well, that's Melina Mike right there. His thumbnail.
We need. Listen, are we gonna give these guys a trophy or anything whenever we see them for like a photo op or anything? Do we have a budget for that?
I don't know. Maybe Billiards Digest will sponsor it.
I will sponsor the trophy. It's gonna be one of those little cups that's like this big. One of those participation trophies.
Hey, the first year I ever played soccer, it was I was 8 years old, and we didn't get a trophy for winning the league, even though we won it. And my dad went out and bought little pieces of wood and built his little trophy out of wood and gave it to all the kids. It was crazy.
Whatever it takes, man. Whatever it takes.
We used to, at Billiard Digest Player of the Year, we used to give out a gold ring. They were
really?
Yeah.
What happened to that, Mike? Why did that tradition stop?
When someone wins, when Allison Fisher wins Player of the Year like 9 years in a row, the price
she's running out of fingers.
Yeah, it's like she's like Tom Brady.
Yeah, no kidding, right? That's fun.
Well, I kind of like
who gives awards? I know AZ Billiards gives awards.
AZ Billiards, yeah.
They give an award.
I just still does. We don't give anything out anymore, but
you just hand out, like you're just saying Player of the Year, Mike.
Yep.
Yeah, we got to come up. We got to have like a photo op next time we see these guys.
Yeah. It's going to be cool. We got some good categories. I think you guys will like them. And part of the fun of this is we got the chat up. So let us know how bad we dogged it when we get to each of these categories, because some of them were like shot of the year, and we're trying to think back. And after you watch so many hours of pool, there's a few that stand out, but I'm sure we missed a dozen or so that you guys will probably remember. So
Half of these things in these categories, I don't even remember. It's so
well,
weird when you get older.
let's get it started with best tournament run, and we got some good ones up here on the list. You know, if you go down through it, Melina, what are some of the ones that really stood out to you?
I mean, for me personally, it was my call for Dang in the Spanish Open at the round of 60. I don't think that was included, although his win was included. But really, my call at 64, when no one had seen Dang play in years, was really the call of the year. But on the tournament run, so many to choose from. SVB getting another world championship finally in his most favorite game of all, 8-ball, which is pretty poetic. Because we all know that's how Shane started playing pool, like most of us playing 8-ball. So many storylines just throughout the year, man. We were there at the U.S. Open, Mike. We saw Little Cole, Hanoi, out to mine, Federer at the Derby. I kind of remember that, kind of don't. Efren at the Derby, that was something that for me was pretty awesome last year, especially on the heels of heading out to Derby in a few weeks. And then, of course, the Philippines in the World Cup of Pool. I mean, anytime the Philippines wins anything, especially as a country, it's just super special because they, unlike any other country, just celebrate pool and those players and those accomplishments like no other. So many things to talk about.
Pinozo, you got anything to add on this list?
Yes, Mohammed Sophie.
Oh yeah, what the heck?
This is what happens when they don't invite you until the last second. I mean,
how did we miss that?
I thought that guy's run because
I thought we sent you the spreadsheet, Mike. How do you dog that one? Didn't we have Sufi and something, Joe?
We did at one point, but somehow.
God, this was so much fun to do the very first category. And
we'll see you guys next year. We'll see you in 2025. Hey, and actually, Sufi might have been the winner there because he ended up out of nowhere.
He might well have been, because that was a story that certainly they hung the first part of the year on, because it was pretty much right out of the gate at the World Pool Championship.
Oh gosh, I love starting off in the very first slide we got, the very first award.
Aren't you glad you invited me?
Oh gosh, no, it's good, but let's go with the winner. We have Efren Reyes at the Derby City Classic.
I have no problem with that.
And you know what? This story was just amazing for someone at his age. Everybody roots for him. Everybody cheers for him. And just to see the run that he put in last year, it was something special. Melina, you were there in person, so tell people about it.
I mean, you got to see it firsthand, which is pretty awesome. And you don't even realize like something special is happening until you realize like at, the last day or second to last day that, oh man, he's got a chance for greatness here. You just see him chop off guys like Josh, and we all know what we think about Josh, even though we only get to see him maybe once a year play one pocket. Saw him beat, I want to say, Sky as well. Takes down Gerson in like the most Ironman style, because all Gerson does is just shove balls up table every single time he plays one pocket. One of my favorite videos of the year was Mike doing this number at a video that I have of Gerson and Efren playing, and Mike's just waiting for an interview with Efren and just counting the balls, and like using his fingers and his toes to figure out who's got what.
That was painful. That was like your wife being in labor and just going on and on and on and on. You're like, Jesus, have the kid already. But go, we got things to do.
We all know Efren's a legend. We always love seeing him play, but we've kind of all accepted the fact that that sun has kind of set on his career. And then you have something like Derby show up where, he goes on a run. I think he ended up getting third place overall, losing to, was it Henny or Tony, maybe? I don't remember.
Tony.
Alex? Or was it? No, he beats Alex. He beats Alex.
He lost to Tony, and then Tony played Hennessy
in the final. Yeah, but it was just an epic run, super special. Mike, you were there for it. You remember how just the buzz was. Everybody
fantastic.
Enjoyed it.
Everything was, wherever he went, everybody was following. And that's what makes the run. I mean, all of a sudden he was on the TV table, every round, and that place was rafter packed. And you could just see how much everybody loved watching him play, even his opponents. How much Tony dug that whole match. So, that's when you know that you're watching something really special.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I think we did kind of dog it for leaving Sufi off, but I don't think you can fault us for going with that.
No, I got no problem with picking Efren here.
He's the guy.
Having been there, it was definitely worth the price of no admission.
Have you guys heard if he'll be there this year?
Mike?
Have not. The assumption is that he is because he loves showing up there, but Efren usually needs a reason to go someplace. I've not heard yet. Have not heard.
Yeah.
All
Well,
right. Well, moving
everybody
on
takes
to
photos
number
with him.
2. Oh, sorry, Melina. But number 2, we really we wanted to give out a sportsmanship award. We didn't have like a list of candidates, but I know this one for you, Mike. I think you witnessed this one maybe personally, or it kind of really sunk in with you about Payne McBride. I think he called a foul on himself. Tell us about that moment.
Yeah, pretty big match with him and Joey Tate out there at Junior Nationals, and nobody saw it really except for Payne. We were watching, live on camera. There was people all in the audience. Nobody saw him move the ball. It wasn't only until replay after he calls the foul on himself, and just given the moment, I think it was a tight match if I remember right. And Collins would know a little better than I would, but for sure for me, the one that stands out was what was Payne. Although Mike did have a pretty awesome recommendation for Sportsman of the Year. Mike, you want to let us know that one? Honorable mention.
You're gonna hang me out to dry on the
the
Jason Shaw last rack against Feder Gorst moment.
Yeah, there you go.
That was right up there.
Yeah, right up there.
Chase LaFerty coming with the Hunter Lombardo at the U.S.
Yeah, the Hunter would be right up there too, and was last year the Mika Jeff.
Oh, and Jeff. No, it was this year. It was
that's I mean last year, 23.
Oh yeah. It was. So and Jeff.
There were some contenders for sure.
We look at the Sportsmanship Award, and it's funny that you guys only think of the occasions where there was poor sportsmanship. But hey, hats off to Payne McBride, a great young player, and showed that he's more than just a pool player, right? He's been brought up the right way, has integrity. So our hats off to him. Congratulations on your first, what are we calling him, Mike? A doggy?
Yeah, the Doggy Awards, I guess. Yeah.
Doggy? Okay.
Do you really want to win a doggy?
Yeah. Yes, you do. Absolutely. It's the biggest honor in pool. All right, let's move on to One Pocket Player of the Year. I know when Melina and I were talking about this, we kind of went back and forth. He had his opinions. I have my opinions. Curious to see what you guys say in the chat. Thoughts on this list, guys? Take us through it, Melina.
Yeah, I mean, so many guys you can choose from. We talked about the Derby just a little bit ago. Obviously, Tony comes to mind because he finally got his banner. We all know the great player that Alex is, but really hasn't had results on tournament play over the last year. Evan for me was someone that I never really give any kind of credit to really at all until you just see that the guy wins, and had a lot of winning last year. I think if you were ranking these players from top to bottom, just as far as their current form, Federer might be at the top of that list, although SVB might give you a run for your money. And then you got Efren there, who's just Efren. And, I remember the first ever One Pocket Power Rankings that we did years ago. We left Efren off the list. So that's how good we were good at judging performances around here. So
well, in fairness, we hadn't seen him play One Pocket in 5 years. And then he goes to Derby City and plays like an animal. So, I mean, how do you know when someone is truly retired? One of the greats of the game. So I don't know. Thoughts on this list, Penozo?
I mean, that. I don't think you left anybody off that list. That's a pretty sporty list when it comes to One Pocket, and they all had their great moments last year. So it's kind of coin flip material here because of the way One Pocket tournaments go and how sparse they are, and who's playing and who isn't playing, and then you've got all the head-to-head matchups. So it makes it a little bit tricky, but this is certainly the list.
I think part of the debate is you have two guys on there who some might argue would be top three in Federer and Shane, and both of them publicly despise the game and despise playing it, and neither one of them want any part of playing Alex. So it's not so much like an overall top One Pocket player ranking. It's just how they were this year alone. So
well, let's go with the winner. And guys, Melina and I were debating this most of the morning.
You're going to get tortured.
I put my foot down. I put the hammer down on this one. It's got to be Evan.
Melina goes with Evan. I wanted Tony. Melina goes with Evan. Both good choices.
Air me out to dry over here.
Yeah. So tell everybody why you went with Evan, Melina.
I mean, it's results. I think I think the equivalent of what a one pocket world championship would be, Buffalo's Classic out in May. And so Evan winning that event, and I know there was a lot of heavy hitters that weren't there, but Evan had a lot of results, including over there on the other side, where you got him winning the U.S. Open one pocket as well. So out there at Griff's, and they had some names that included Tony along that list, and Evan beat Tony out there at Buffalo. So if I'm going just off of results, I'm going with Evan. For me, he showed the most form throughout the year. Never mind the fact that the guy was also second in Derby City Banks. Now, I know that's not a one pocket category, but just if we're talking form in general, he sustained that throughout the year. So I got to give credit where it's due. I love Tony. I'm super happy for him finally getting his Derby championship, but I got to go with Evan Lunda for 2023.
It sounds like you value buffs over Derby City one pocket, right? So like the player who wins buffs gets a little more weight for you than Derby City. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I guess to some extent, yeah. And I think a lot of players, if you're just ranking one pocket tournaments, Buffaloes would be at the top of the list. Although Mike and Billiards Digest didn't even write about it, so I know he doesn't even acknowledge it as a one pocket major. Too soon, Mike?
No, not at all.
But it's easy for me to go, like, my gut was telling me Tony, and then I start thinking, I'm like, well, hold on a minute. Evan did this, Evan did that, and Evan's always an afterthought, like I mentioned before. For me, he always is. I never really give him that much respect on his game because he's kind of got this carefree style of play. It doesn't really seem like he's too interested most of the time. Seems to be more active on the one-on-one tournaments more than anything else, which is great. But he's also showing form, in tournament play as well. So I got to give it where it's due, man. Although I wanted to vote for Tony, I did, but I got to give it to Tony.
I'm curious to get Pinozzo's thoughts, but I look at it like Tony bookends the year, wins Derby City, and then follows it up with the Marquang at the end of the year. We know he had health struggles throughout the year and still manages to play great one pocket. I think he was the best one pocket player this year, but I can see the argument for Evan as well. What do you say, Pinozzo?
Yeah, I mean, again, with the one pocket, it's kind of so all over the board as far as what you would use to weigh things and give the most weight to. But I think they're close enough where it's not a bad pick either way.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I still think Tony's a better player, just for the record. So before I get crucified on here,
you're already getting crucified, Molina. I'm so glad I told people this was your pick.
Yeah, thanks, buddy. Appreciate that, pal.
All right, moving on before Jennifer Rabbit hangs up and doesn't follow our show anymore because she's fit to be tied.
There you go.
I just started to jump in an ice bath. She'll be fine.
There you go.
All right, here we got Junior Male Player of the Year. And, this was tough, right? Do we do U.S.? Do we do world? You see Kachi in there. There's so many good players throughout the world. But we see the junior players that are locally a little more. So perhaps we have a little bit of bias here. So if for our European friends that are in here or Asian friends, you're probably going to be like, where's so and such? But we thought this was a pretty good list. Some very good young players.
How did you not include the kid from Estonia or your favorite Yannick Pongers in here?
We did this together. Pongers.
No, I told you. I
Nederberg,
said we were on the phone. We were on the phone. You mentioned Carl. I said yeah, and then I mentioned Yannick Pongers because you love saying his name. How do you not include those two guys?
And he's got great hair.
At least throw him on the list. By the way, that's what we should have done. We should have done best hair of who would win the best hair of the whole tour. Between what's the kid's name from Hong Kong? God, what's the kid's name?
Hong Kong?
Yeah.
Robbie Capito.
Robbie Capito.
Yeah.
Who else is in the conversation for best hair?
You haven't said anybody that can mess with Pongers yet. His hair is
best hair.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's tight.
Well, okay. Listen. Like Joey says, we're given mad favoritism when it comes to the American players here because we just don't follow enough of these young Europeans. I know we all loved watching Claudio play, but yeah. You want to go ahead, Joe?
Yeah, and by the way, people are questioning where's the Roadrunner. We do have a female player of the year, so stand by.
Jeff
Stand by
DeLune
for
will be a
that.
good one for hair of the year for sure. I think
That's
he
going to
might
be
win.
hotly debated. Penozo, what are your thoughts about this list right here?
No, I would lean a little more towards the American juniors because we see them more often, and the junior game in the U.S. has become such a strong part of the pool community, which is great. And so I don't have any problem giving them most of the love. And there's great young players on here. You look at the list and you're thinking, there's some guys here who can make a dent in the upcoming years at the next level. So all good choices here.
This was so close that I did a slide for the winner, and then Melina said, I thought we said the other guy. And so it was, we were kind of right up to the very end. We were trying to decide who this is, and we picked Adrian Prasad. Melina, I know you've seen him live and in person quite a bit, going out to hard times. Give people the rundown on Adrian.
Yeah, for me it was, and I know a lot of mention of Lazaro, obviously being from Texas. I'm real big on his game, but him not being at junior nationals for me weighted big, and with that, Adrian got a position, and Adrian followed that up with getting second in World Junior Nationals. So that's the reason why I leaned on Adrian. Besides the fact that I'm a big fan of this young man personally. But just as far as his game, I see him trending in the right direction. He's a good kid, good head on his shoulders, and I root for him always, man. So,
Penozo?
Yeah, no problem. I think Adrian, he did what he had to do in the junior nationals, got himself to the worlds, and finished second. He's just, he's a good kid and plays in a lot of these events, does well. That's good for him. Look forward to seeing him in the future.
The second at Worlds for me was the tipping scale, because when I thought about it at the beginning, I was putting Sam ahead of Adrian, and then while we were debating a little bit, I bring up the Pro Billiard Series, and I'm looking over results of the World Championships, and that's when I seen Adrian. I remembered, okay, yeah, he got second, so that kind of tipped the scales for me at the end.
Yeah.
But so many great young players. You think about the Filipinos as well. Although I think of them more like in the professional terms, I don't think of these guys like as junior players. I think about them in the big boy sense, even though they are young monsters, so it's a little bit different for me.
Do they have junior tournaments in the Philippines, or are these guys all gambling at 6?
Everybody's robbing everybody, Mike, basically. Yeah, everybody is. Yeah. So
yeah, by the way, we could have had Rico on the list. Somebody mentioned Rico in the chat.
Yeah.
Fine young player from Finland. So let's move along. Congrats to Adrian Prasad. We'll have to get you your doggy when we get it. Junior.
I think your trophy should be those little dogs you put in the back of the car with the head that kind of like
big ears. You gotta have the big ears,
with the little bobblehead neck dog in the back.
You said you were sponsoring that, Penozo. So whatever you come up with,
whatever the budget works for, Mike. Yeah.
There's gonna be pool players driving all over the country with these things on the back.
We're going shopping after
back
this.
Windshield.
All right, Melina, take us through the female player of the year, junior player of the year candidates.
Okay, this was highly debated, highly contested. We all went back and forth as we were discussing this off air. Mike's first reaction was not the winner who we had. I look at results. You got Hong Jing Yu, and I think she was the defending world junior champion. Although we've only seen her play basically 2 times over the last 2 years. So again, we're going a little more American favoritism here, just because we see these kids play more and more. But for me, it was yeah.
Did we dog the spelling on Sophia?
Yes, you did.
Not me. I didn't. Joey was the one who did
Sophia.
Joey was the one who did the slides, by the way.
I banged out these slides as quick as I could. I'm so sorry, Sophia. Please forgive me.
Good job, Joe.
So why don't we go with the winner? And then it'll make it even worse, because we were between Sophia and Savannah, but the nod goes to Savannah Easton. Melina, Mike.
No, I'll let Mike take the reins, because Mike's first reaction, his gut reaction said, "Who?"
Said
Mike?
Sophia.
Said Sophia. And why? Why is
that? You talked about weighing the junior worlds is a big deal. Sophia finished
she got second,
and
she did.
She beat the eventual winner, was the defending champion, beat her pretty good in the earlier rounds.
Okay, I did not know. I did not know that part.
Loser bracket, and then lost to Sophia in the final. I think Sophia probably head-to-head matches against Savannah is at least even, maybe ahead. Savannah, but listen, Savannah's at all these events. She plays in everything all the time, all the women's professional events, and she's done well enough to hit like the top 10 in the WPBA. So, I don't think that
Right.
I don't think there's a wrong choice there. But to me, if you're looking at the junior player of the year, for me it was Sophia. I mean, Savannah's the best young pro player, but I think there's I look at it a little bit differently.
Yeah, for me, and when I was just looking back at the results of junior nationals, I see 3 golds there. That kind of
Yeah,
weighed heavily for me, and I know the Texas Open. And looking back at Worlds, we saw Sophia get second in there as well. It was real close, but her finishing in that top 10 WPBA, the second ranked American player, for me was part of what tipped the scales a little bit. I just see her competing all day, every day,
yeah,
all
she
over the
does.
country, and so that for me was the reason why I went with it. So
Yeah, no, and listen, we're in a good position to be able to talk about a couple of junior players like this at both at such a high level that it makes it a
right.
contest.
Well,
So
that's the thing,
that
Mike.
bodes
Is
well. That bodes well for again, we talked about the junior programs coming up and how seriously these kids are taking the game and how well they respect the game and how good they are. Off the table, on the table, like a Payne McBride, things like that. So, there's no wrong answers here.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
it's not for me. Like that's what's beautiful about it is that you can legitimately talk about their game, like not just talk about them in the sense of being young kids who are great stories. Like they both play the game extremely tough, So and there's a very evenly weighted debate between the two. Whenever you talk about them, and I'm just excited for what this year is going to bring because last year was a roller coaster. I was there at Junior Nationals, and I saw them one day literally just take over the TV table, one division after another, playing in finals and semifinals, back to a finals, another final, another final. It was unreal. These girls dominate the junior circuit, and they're playing pretty well on the pro scene as well here in the
Yeah,
states.
yeah. I want to
yeah.
see Sophia play a little more in the pro events in the future and see how she holds up.
It's going to be fun watching their development, and like you guys say, they're right there competing against each other all the time, and so it's not always linear, right? So just because they're on a certain path, things can change. One could leapfrog the other. Next year, we could talk about how great Sophia's year was, right?
Yep.
Even though she was very close to winning this award this year, so we might have dogged it. I don't know. I kind of like Sophia a
No, I
little
don't think
bit.
you dogged it. Like I said,
Yeah.
there's no wrong answer.
It's
You know,
close. It's
yeah.
close. Yeah. So, all right, moving along. Most exciting pool moment.
Well, Anton's miss at the European Open just took over the internet for at least a good week and a half. You saw everybody and anyone debate the shot, how he should have played it, the way he should have played it. It was in a final at Hill against David and really shaped a lot of what ended up coming for the rest of the year. Because if David doesn't win that final, he may not make the Mosconi Cup. Now I know that put him in position to be in the conversation or to solidify a top 3 position. But if he doesn't win that, that's not an automatic. So
Right.
that miss is even more weighted. It shook the world. We all knew Anton's like degree and how much of a monster that he was, but that just showed us that he can do it anywhere now. And that for me was one that it was hard debating the other way on.
Curious to see what you guys think in the chat. So hit up the chat and let us know what you think about most exciting pool moment. Pinozo, what are your thoughts on this?
I don't know. It's how you measure the moment.
What is a moment?
The
Well, that's the thing.
moment's
I look
big.
at like Shane winning a world championship. That I'm thinking of a shot. I'm thinking of that magic moment type thing. The final 8 ball, I guess, does it for Shane, but I
That
think
wasn't
of
a
things.
tough shot, Mike. You could have made that ball.
No, but that's what I'm saying. I'm saying so there wasn't like a moment there.
Yeah,
Him
yeah.
winning was a great thing. It was a great storyline. But as far as moments, I would go with Pia Filler's spot shot. I just thought that was just that was what if well, I'm just saying if Predator or the WPA wanted to Predator was trying to sell spot shot idea in terms of, value, television value and drama and edge of your seat. It doesn't get any more than that. That was
Well,
do or die, make a spot shot for, what was it? I don't know
this
how much.
was
It was for a
it
lot of
was
money.
for it was for it was for 40,000 a man. It was for her first world
40,000 a man.
championship. It
And
was
It
yeah,
was
it was
big.
it
and it
was
was a
it, it
spot
was
shot.
massive.
You just saw the last couple people go up there and drill it right into the corner, into the rail. So, and you've got Josh
It
Filler patting on the back
yeah.
telling you, go ahead, no problem, just go make it. So, no, in her reaction, I just thought that was the coolest, 5-second pool moment of the year.
It was. And you know what? But was it the most exciting? And one of the things Melina said about Anton's miss was the fact that it was talked about for like a month online. But I think there was a moment even bigger, and that was that day that we all found out that Federgorst was going to play for Team USA.
Freddie.
That
Freddie.
was discussed, debated, argued. People had strong opinions about it. It was just at that time, I think so many people were shocked because for years they had said things like, well, Jason should play on USA, and nobody really thought it was possible. And then all of a sudden, one day, out of nowhere, it was possible. And it gave the United States hope, right? Hope that now we're not just the huge underdog.
That
that
hope
if
didn't
we
translate
catch
so well, buddy.
that if
Before
we
you go
catch Magic, we could win the event. But hey, we're right there with them now, right? So I think that's why we ended up settling on Federgorst being named for Team USA. That moment in time was something that when you look at internet traffic, you look at the amount of people talking about it, and you look at the impact that it made from a team that's a heavy underdog, maybe a 3 or 4 game underdog in the Mosconi Cup, or 3 or 4 match underdog, to all of a sudden being like almost pick 'em. It was significant. So
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
kind of why we came with that.
it blew the wheels off the internet for sure. I think that's why we ended up. I don't want to say settling on it because it was big, it was massive. We sat on that story for like a week, man. Which was brutal. But we knew that it would just shake up the whole, the whole pool world because for years it was. I mean, well, we talked about just the process of becoming a citizen, right? So that was something that we thought, okay, it's not going to be for another few more years. The fact that it ended up being this past year and that it actually happened surprised everyone. But so many things that you can talk about, like just the moment, the Pia one, the whitewash. I mean, so many things. Little Co. It's pool was great this year, so I'm glad we were able to have this debate for sure.
Yeah, I think maybe next week split it up into, like shot of the year or moment of the year and story of the year, because certainly Federer was the story of the year.
Well, I think we still got shot of the year, right? Right, Joe?
Yeah, we do. We do.
Okay,
We have shot of the year. So stand by, hold your horses.
Oh, well, then why did I waste all that time talking about Pia, for Pete's sake?
There you go. There you go. There you go.
All right. Next, we have our comeback player of the year, and I think this was pretty unanimous. We didn't really even have other people that we considered when you think about kind of the magnitude of what Darren Appleton faced, and the fact that he got out and played more pool this year was really remarkable. And so I'm really excited to see Darren back at it. He's great for the sport. He's wonderful to talk to and interview, and it's just exciting to have him back in the mix. Thoughts on this, Melina?
I mean, he's an inspiration. What are you going to say? It was like a year ago when the news came out and it kind of shook everyone. There was a good chance Darren wasn't going to make it, so for him to not only have survived, but then, now he's out, he's competing again. He's taking it slowly, which is understandable, but he's a legend. He's a multiple time world champion. We all love rooting for the guy. By far, it wasn't even close. There wasn't even anything else for consideration for me. It was Darren all day, every day. So
Penozo?
Yeah, of course. You love stories like this, and everybody loves Darren. So, everybody's just happy to see him, backing around, and doubly happy to see him, back at the table and hitting balls. And I look forward to Mika winning this next year.
Exactly. We're all pulling for that. All right, female player of the year, and we got some good candidates up here. Talk us to them, Melina.
I'll let Mike do the talking there.
Well, no, I mean, it was a good year. I mean, Cheska's story is fantastic. You really, I had talked about at the time how I was waiting for her to win one of those world champions. She's been she's been pretty big hitter in Asian events, the national tournaments over there. But I've seen her for years and just thought, God, how's this girl not winning more, significant international titles? So to see her win was great. Jasmine Aushin, good year for her. Kind of a little bit of a bounce back year, won a couple of titles. But listen, Kelly's Kelly. So you just trot a half dozen, you just trot 10 tournaments out there, and you just kind of book her in for about 6, and just see who wins the other 4. So
it's pretty remarkable. Kelly Fisher's still doing it, and it doesn't look like she has any signs of slowing down. I feel like she may even be getting better at this point in her career. Thoughts, Melina?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, we talked about once the Asian players started coming back into the mix, whether or not she'd have the same success, and she has, so she's quieted those questions for sure. I'd like to see more. I'd like to see more of the Chinese players come back into the mix. I'd love to see, more elite competition, but I mean, she's the cream rising to the top all the time. She's always there at the end. She's always playing on Sundays. She's absolutely big time, without a doubt, the female player of the year for me, for my money.
All right, moving on. Match of the year. This one was tough because it's tough to recall all the great matches that you see throughout the year. We picked 4 that we thought were pretty key matches that kind of stood out to us. Obviously, Melina wanted the Dang match up there since he called Dang from the Final 64. We've heard it over and over
Let's go, baby.
It's
Did you
almost
really?
like me talking about the Super Billiards Expo.
Did you do that, Mike?
In case you didn't know, let me tell you that story. So it was like a Wednesday.
The story was like either between that or between that and Joey's SB's Super Billiard Expo run.
It was like a Wednesday afternoon.
Top 2 stories of the year.
The clouds were just coming in, and then I just had an epiphany.
We got Jason and Albin in Hanoi. Obviously, that was further helped along by the fans there. It was such an electric environment. We mentioned the Pia shot for Team Germany against Taiwan at the World Teams. And then we've also already talked about the David and Anton moment that occurred at the European Open, which was just an incredible match. So, Panozzo, your thoughts on these?
Yeah, I mean, we were really treated this year to some amazing title matches, which isn't always the case. So it was a really good year for edge of your seat title matches. I loved the Dang Biesterbatch one because they were both, Melina aside, pretty not expected to be in a final match, and then they just went after it. And I loved Biesterbatch. He wasn't shying away from any shot. If he could see a quarter of the ball, he was going for pockets.
We thought he was like a 3-game dog going into that final.
I remember he made it really fun. It was a really fun match to watch. Really Jason and Albin, of course, the atmosphere in Hanoi made that even more tilt. But that was a fantastic slugfest match. Those were probably for me were the top 2.
And sorry, Mike.
No, I was going to say, I mean, so many things that you can just pick apart on each one of these things. It was a great year. The fans were the real winners here because every tournament, it just seemed like we had these moments that popped up that were just epic. And even whenever like you thought it would be anticlimactic, you ended up getting like Dang and Biesterbosch. Because I remember joking around during like the final 8. I said nobody wants to see Dang and Biesterbosch play, and then it ended up being. I said,
I remember you moaning like someone ruined your action.
Yeah, no, I mean, and that ended up being one of the best finals ever. So but this is what pool can serve to us, right? This is why we all love it. This is why we're fans, and so, but for me. It was no question. The atmosphere made it all. Vietnam was the winner. The Jason versus Albin final in Hanoi was everything. I mean, it ended up just being so monumental when it came to the landscape of the Mosconi Cup for Team Europe. It was weighted on so many terms, and Jason just doing Jason things when the crowd's on, when the atmosphere is electric. He just stands up, he rises like no other player. So it was very fitting for me.
If you're watching that match, which I was, And when Albin scratches on that break, I mean, you couldn't. It's like one of those moments where you can't contain yourself. You have to have an audible noise that comes out like, ah! It was that moment. And when do you have that in a pool match? Well, it's not very often. And so for me, this was that match, that moment where I just remember thinking, what an incredible match. We're going to remember this one for a long time. Penoso?
Yeah, no, it was like I said before, the atmosphere made it, next level, and the quality of play. I mean, you're talking about, two of the top players when it comes to, head-to-head deep run in a tournament. This was as good as it gets, and it was just gut-wrenching finish. Some finishes are notable by the great shot someone make to win. This one was notable by well, it wasn't really a miss. It was a kick into the side. It was a brutal roll, and it was too bad. But it was that kind of exciting match where something like that almost had to happen. You kind of waited for that to happen. It was fun to watch.
Even in the interview afterwards, you could tell that, man, Albin was really upset about that, right?
Yeah.
We're all upset when we get a bad roll. But, man, it was almost like it was going to take him a week or two to get over it. And I think when we interviewed him a week or two later, or maybe even a month later, he said, yeah, it took him a long time to get over that moment. And it's just one of those things that we've all experienced. If you played the game, something coming up out of nowhere and happening that just breaks your heart. And that's one of the things that makes a game great.
Well, there was that video that showed up, I forgot on whose feed, where it showed Albin off to the side, in tears after that match was over. And you just realize, like, how much the guy wanted it. And this is like a multiple-time world champion. This guy is one of the most decorated and consistent players in pool. And he still has that level of fire and desire and competitive spirit. And this is why he's the absolute monster and legend that he is. So...
And I think a lot of that had to do with, we talked about how much the atmosphere impacted the match. And I think it added so much more pressure and probably adrenaline and all that to both players. I mean, it just, does he sit down in a corner and cry if, it's a different tournament somewhere where there's 25 people, if it's, a Euro Tour final or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Forget the money that was at stake. I think that the stage that match produced just made it all the more important. And then to have it close and you feel like, you wanted to experience that winning moment. I think that's what really knocked the wind out of him so much.
I think back to a match, it's kind of like you're looking at Albin and you try to imagine what he's saying to himself. And he gets out to get on the hill, right? And then he's probably saying, okay, just get the ball down on the break, control the ball, get a ball down. And he gets up and he gets a ball down on a break. And so the cue ball's rolling to the side. It looks fine. He's like, oh, it's lining up perfect. I'm going to win this tournament. And then doop, right in the side. And it's like, oh my God, I'm going to lose the tournament. It's just crazy. This game, we love it, but it'll drive you crazy. So congratulations to Jason and Albin on really giving us a treat. And I think now that Albin, it's long, past, I think Albin probably will appreciate the fact that he gave us one of the greatest moments of last year.
No,
you
chance.
Don't think so?
No chance. No,
He's still pissed.
Chance.
Okay.
Zero chance. No, not that guy. He's wired different.
Okay, he's built different. Got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Shot of the year. Here we go. So Molina forgot about this first one, but I'm like, this was crazy because if you remember, it was Filler had a shot where he had to kick at a ball up table, 2 rails, kick from behind and stick the cue ball and send the ball down table. And as soon as he hit it, as soon as the cue ball made contact with the object ball, Filler it was like a walk-off. He just walked away, like, got him, and walked away. And it turns out to be a beautiful safety. That was a really cool moment. Chua, I don't totally recall this one, Molina. Take us through that one, the 7 ball.
Don't ask me. I don't remember this one either.
Well, I didn't put it up there.
All I remember was that Team Philippines had to come super clutch. But listen, let's be real. The most epic part of this list right here is that all of them include fillers. Every single one of the shots of the year include
Oh, wow.
Number
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, in some form or fashion. So no, Team Philippines was great. And that was, listen, the World Cup of Pool is near and dear to my heart. It's my absolute favorite tournament. I love watching Scotch doubles. I love the chemistry, and those two guys winning. I think they had a first round matchup against Team Spain, defending champions, were a little bit of underdogs to say the least, and a lot of debate whether or not they should be the two representing the Philippines, just because you got so many monster players like Carlo and Dennis and guys like that. But to show up the way they did, they had a really tough draw, and then that epic finals against Moritz and Josh, was unbelievable. So
Yeah. Well, guys, the winner in this category is the Pia filler shot, which probably influenced the fact that she didn't win on the most exciting moment part. But
100%, 100%.
we have the
Do
the
I get to
actual
talk about
moment
this
here.
again?
Let me see if I could show you guys the shot. This is from the
By the way,
the actual event. Let me see if I can turn it down a little.
Predator's going to be pissed here in a minute. In 3,
No. Well, shout out to Predator letting us air this little piece here.
This is for the World Championship right here. Should put on the sound.
I bet you she makes it.
Yeah. Might be the only bet you make this year. buddy.
Drano.
Yeah. Look at that reaction too. That's the best part
That's
about it.
crazy.
Yeah. The same way that Albin kind of was there in tears afterwards, you can just see how much that Pia wanted it as well in that moment.
But
it's
Drano.
Hitting the back of the pocket. Absolutely epic shot. Yeah.
Yeah, great stuff.
Yeah.
What a moment. With all that pressure. That was awesome.
Yeah.
No, she earned it. It was a very special moment in the year, without a doubt. And so like Mike said, when it comes to that format, listen, something's working like that, Mike. When you had everyone at the edge of your seat and you have that moment where I think Josh had missed or Moritz had missed. You had 2 Taiwanese players that had missed up until that point, and it was theirs. It was there for her for the taking, and she took it, man. That's what winners do. That's what champions do, and she did it. And that embrace right there is the best photo of the year for me.
Yeah. That was super cool. And it has a way. These things have a way in these team competitions where obviously if you were going to pick one of the 3 players, what happened? Hold on.
What happened?
Stand by. If you had a choice, you would pick Moritz. Obviously, you'd pick Josh, then Moritz, then Pia to take the shot. Well, it happened to be Pia's shot, and she wins the whole event. What a great shot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Terrific
He was
stuff.
awesome.
All right, moving along. This is
the last,
I believe
category?
This is our last category, male player of the year. And this was a toughie.
Wow.
A lot of good players out there. Talk us through it, guys.
I mean, we were kind of robbed because Kachi goes out with an injury midway through the year. He was on an absolute monster run. Who knows, what else he would have won throughout the year because he was so dominating, so imposing. He just ran through everyone, including Joshua Filler in the last major final that he was in. I think it was the European, Mike. Is that right? I think it was a European. And of course, you got SVB winning another world championship. Ko Ping Chun winning the U.S. Open, along with what else did Little Ko win, Mike? He won China. China? No, Josh won China.
He won the Maldives Open.
Ain't nobody talking about the Maldives. Get out of here with Maldives, Mike.
They all played in
Was he runner up in Qatar?
It was a $30,000 top prize.
He was.
He was he was a runner up in Qatar, and he won the U.S. Open.
Yeah. Of course, you got Yap. Yap is just kind of the quiet one there that always ends up. He had a stretch, like a 3-month stretch, where he was just absolutely consistent and just beating everyone, and had Federer's number for the longest time along with that.
Yeah.
So,
it's a good list there.
Pinozzo, I know you have some thoughts on this. Who are you between from this list?
I was always between Josh and Little Ko.
Have to.
And I kind of put together, I kind of analyzed as best I could given the top events and events that they both played in the same event. And it's amazing how close they were. I think Josh, of the 12 events that I looked at, Josh played in 11 and Little Cole played in 10. They each had 2 titles in those. Josh had like 6 Final Four finishes. Little Cole had 4. Josh finished higher than Cole 5 times to 4. So, they played 9, similar events. So it was really, to me, it was a lot closer than I think people would probably, suspect. But in my head, in the magazine, we gave the nod to Josh.
Yeah. It's very tight. I think if Kachi doesn't get hurt, then it's a 3-horse race here that we're talking about, because he was just on an incredible heater and playing great pool. It'll be interesting to see how he bounces back this year. But ultimately, at the end of the day, we went with Joshua Filler. And when you look at those earnings on the left-hand side, and then on the right-hand side was just his performances from AZ Billiards, all of the events that he played in, so many ones up there, which, as you guys know, it's so tough to win a top-tier tournament, right? But Josh just consistently, day in and day out, gets up there and wins tournaments, wins big events. So,
well, people forget that the first 3 months of the year, there was a lot of talk whether Josh would even be Josh. We had many debates about him, being forced to use carbon fiber and what role that would have on his game. And then for 9 months, he just took over the sport, and I know he didn't have success on a matchroom stage, but guy won a lot of really big events. He wins Qatar, he wins the world teams. What else does he have wins up there for, Joe? I mean, just
let's see.
We all saw the
So
Moscone
he had
Cup.
a bunch of Euro Tour wins. Let's see.
Yeah.
Oh, so he won about 2,000 a pop there. That's pretty good.
Yeah, no, Wisconsin Open.
I discount all those.
Yeah.
I tried to just look at, what I considered significant events that they both played in to kind of see, and Josh just performed a little bit better, on the whole. I mean, Josh's worst finish, I think, was a 17th. Whereas Cole, there was one tournament, I think Cole didn't even hit the top.
Is that counting the split bracket from last weekend? Because
yes.
I think that's his kryptonite. Okay, handicap tournament. Josh he's nothing. He's got nothing. Yeah, but any other event, he's tough to beat.
He's always there. You talked about the great matches of the year. He was there in the World Team Final. He was there in the World Cup of Pool Final. He was there, in Moscone Cup, which, again, I don't weigh those, as far as head-to-head stuff goes. But you take him into consideration in that when there's an event going on, Josh is going to be up near the top anywhere, anytime, no matter what. He just is.
Yeah.
Well, he's always the most memorable guy at Moscone. That's got the who's who of everyone there. So he's tough to fade, man.
In order to make a good living playing pool, you got to win the big events, and that's what he does. You look at his paydays; he got $50,000 for winning the Qatar Open. He got $40,000 for winning the World Team Championship. $40,000 for the Moscone Cup. I mean, he's getting big paydays.
This is what's interesting is a lot of those paydays were WPA sanctioned events. So, I'm curious. I'm curious.
China
of those
paydays, $40,000.
Yeah. He's going to miss that Qatar payday. That's for sure.
So it's gonna be interesting to see how the rest of the year unfolds. But without a doubt, just a dominating year. I couldn't argue against Josh Filler. Not any day, not today. So
and there were other great players on that list, and I think Loco was right there with him. So it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out next year, especially with more events in Asia, and we'll probably get to see these guys face off more against each other.
No, it wasn't even on that list.
Who did we dog it with?
FSR.
He was kind of on the list, but
I'm not saying he should have been on the list. I just,
I mean, he was only the world 9-ball champion.
He won the world 9-ball champion, didn't even make the list.
Would he have a chance to win out of that grouping? No. He would have at least been fourth, I think.
No.
I'd put him behind Kachi last year. Yeah.
Last year, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, Kachi was just so dominant until he got injured. It was ridiculous.
Yeah.
He's probably the one I'm most looking forward to seeing how they bounce back in 2024 for sure.
What say you, Mike? Who are you looking forward to this year?
Yeah, definitely looking forward to Kachi. I mean, we talk about, comeback player of the year, and we hope it's Mika, but, Kachi, it's going to be really interesting to see how he bounces back. And I know he's excited to play. Um, and he's a tough kid. So whether he's still 100% or not, I expect him to be a threat.
I mean, there's so many guys who I'm looking forward to. We saw the Filipinos going to Taiwan. I'm excited to see them. I'm excited to see how, if there is a Reyes Cup, how that influences just the competitiveness that's coming out of that region. Of course, the Europeans are going to be the Europeans. I think it's going to be a bit of a changing of the guard kind of season. I think we're going to see more younger players, kind of make their own place on this stage this year. And I just so many different guys to look forward to this year. But of course, Kachi is going to be close to the top of that list because he was so unbelievable through 6 months.
Yeah.
Well, hey guys,
I'm looking forward to. I would love to see, that young contingent of Filipino players in a lot of these events. That's if I had my wish list, it would be I want to see Raga, Regulario, Feliciano, all those guys in like 5 or 6 events this year.
Well, yeah, because I think that core are the ones who can give these Europeans who have kind of been on their high horse for years a run for their money each and every event.
No doubt about it.
They can kind of knock them off that pedestal, and they've earned the right to be there. But those young Filipino players are tough, man. They are tough, and they're not going with the grain when it comes to how their performances are on match arenas. They're coming right out the gate just sharp. So if that's the case, you give them a good 6 months. Give them a good 6 months of seasoning, and then we're going to see where they're at. Because I guarantee you, they'll be playing on Saturday and Sundays for the entire year.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Well, hey guys, thanks for sticking with us. We appreciate all the comments. We knew going in. One reason we named this show "Doggin It" is because we knew that it always gives us an out. So if we screw up, we could always say we dogged it. But really do appreciate you guys tuning in. Give us some feedback on our categories. Give us some feedback on things to improve on next year. We'd love to hear it. Special shout out to our sponsors. You see Franco and Premier, top and bottom. And then also on the other side, all the sponsors scrolling through. We can't do it without them. And if you want to support the show, head on over to Patreon, patreon.com/doggingit. And Melina, take them through what we got the rest of this week.
No idea, but we thanks to everyone for hanging out with us. And no, I'm kidding. What do we got going on this week? I'm trying to get CJ Wiley for tomorrow night, so we're seeing if we can line that up as well. What else do we got, Joe? I know there's a long list. I want to try to get maybe Federer or Jason on. I've been trying to get Jason on since like the end of last year. So I don't know, just getting ready for Derby more than anything. So
nice.
But we had a couple fun ideas that we were bouncing around. So we'll see.
Yeah, we'll come up with something for you guys for sure.
Yeah.
All right.
So
thanks for joining, guys. Take care.